40 now, 5. I got 45 now, 50. 45 now, I got... You bidding?
They kicked me out. Dang it.
I got 45 now, 50. 45 now, 50 now, 50. 45 now, 50. 45 now, 50. 45 now, 50. I got 45 now, 50.
I'm worried that we're teaching AJ how to gamble.
All in, all done?
He loves doing the bidding.
Sold.
And I was over there helping to put that mister up, and now I don't need it, so it's cooled off.
I know, right? Oh my gosh.
Maybe they got it turned on. And
45.
I hope they were just checking it out.
Yeah, it's just right there.
Yeah, nice.
It took us like 15 minutes to put it up, and then we had to hook water to it.
It's the dome one. It's that straight ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now it's cooled off. I'm not sweating anymore.
Good. That's good. That's good.
People that are here, look at all.
All right, everyone, give a round of applause for Wild Bill. Isn't he natural? We should hire him. All right, without further ado, I'd like to welcome David Rydell, our leader, our mentor, the man. All right, everyone, let's stand up for a moment and give him a round of applause. This man stays up all hours of the night, talking to people, phone calls, interviews, listening to you, working hard, figuring out a plan for our peaceful protest. So, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Woo-woo!
Wow, what a weekend. I was so excited last night. I believe the last group pulled in at 2 o'clock this morning. And it just blows me away what happened the last 48 hours. We began to run out of room, which is a problem I like. So thank you all. How many's come in the last 48 hours? Raise your hand. All right, man, a lot of hands. God bless you. Glad you're here. And we got rain, looks like, coming in, so I'm going to have to hurry. That's why they go ahead and got me up. But got up this morning, and I've been, you know, I don't get up here and just make up stuff. I like to have an idea of what God's want me to talk about every time I stand before you. And my constant prayer is, God, they do not need to hear from me. They need to hear from you. And so all morning long I've been struggling because I didn't have anything. Miss Rose came to my truck this morning and said, let's pray. So I began to pray with her, and right in the middle of the prayer, all of this just started coming to me. So I'm going to deliver my soul this morning. Hopefully it will help you, inspire you, motivate you, and feed you spiritually, mentally, and patriotically. So I was thinking about the children of Israel when they first went into Egypt. They went there and were accepted with open arms. Joseph was second only to the Pharaoh, and so when they went into Egypt, they went there as friends. They were treated as equals and given great favor. But over time they became slaves to that governmental system. Sound familiar? Till finally one day God sent a man and said, let my people go. God hardened Pharaoh's heart. A number of plagues began to be poured out upon them until finally they agreed to let God's people go. Long story short, they went into the wilderness. Because of disobedience, they wandered for 40 years waiting on the promised land. And finally the day came. A young man named Joshua steps up to lead his people. And the Bible records that when they went to the river of Jordan at that particular time of year, it was overflowing its banks. The snow caps on Mount Hermon were melting. The river was overflowing. And God sent the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant before them, half a mile before the rest of the people of God. They were marching forward. And as soon as their feet stepped into Jordan's River, the Bible says that 2.5 miles up, or 20 miles up one side, the river began to pile up. The land became dry. And the children of Israel began to march through. But before they went through, Joshua had told the people, he said, I want you to choose out one man out of each of the 12 tribes. And when we get into the middle of the river, I want you to pick up one of those stones. For on the other side of that river, we are going to build a monument to our God to declare that it wasn't by our strength, it wasn't by our might that we have came into the promised land, but it was by the power of an almighty God. All these 12 men, and you guys know how we men are, to be selected out of all of those millions of people, just 12 were selected to do so. Those men, given a great honor, walk over to those rocks that are in the middle of that. And remember, we're building a monument to our God on the other side. So these are not pebbles. These are not small rocks. And these are not just regular men. These are manly men, right? We're not going to be picking up little bitty rocks. As a matter of fact, if I was walking behind Big D and I saw Big D pick up a big rock, I'm going to look at him and say, oh boy, you ain't outdoing me. I'll pick up one a little bit bigger. And you can imagine as it goes on down the line, each succeeding man, he's getting a bigger and a bigger stone, right? Because we're doing something that's going to be significant for years to come, because Joshua told them, for years your children and your children's children will revisit this monument that we're going to build. And so by the time they get, and now you got to also understand, they have no idea where they're going with these stones, just that they're going to pick them up and carry them to where God tells them to put it down. So these men begin to get these big stones. And I brought this up here just kind of to represent the actual word. When you trace it out, it meant a cornerstone. The cornerstone is the most important stone in any kind of foundation. It is usually the largest stone. So these guys are carrying rather large stones. So when you go to pick up something like this, you want to lift with your legs, right? So they get down and they pick up this big stone. Now I picked something light because I'm weak. But anyway, they pick up this big stone. I'm going to act like it's heavy, so bear with me. You guys know it's not, right? I'm not this strong. This is not a cornerstone. So anyway, they pick up this big stone, and they're like, all right, let's do this. This is kind of like when we rolled into Hagerstown with their flags all brand new, right? Oh, let's do this thing. We're on board, man. Let's do this thing. Oh, we're all excited. And then they begin to march, and the people of God are encouraging them. They have a position of honor. They have a position of greatness, and they're carrying this stone, and they walk. But some Bible historians put the place of Gilgal, where they're going to actually build this monument, 7 miles from the river of Jordan. Had they have known it was going to be that far, they might not have taken on such a task as this. But here they go. The first mile. Yeah, our flags are still flying and we're still excited. Bring it on, baby. We're here to possess the promised land. Mile number 2. I'm starting to hurt a little bit. This thing's starting to dig into my chest. Starting to dig into my arms. I feel my hands growing numb. Mile number 3. This used to look like a position of honor, but now it's becoming a position of pain. Mile number 4. I don't want to disappoint my tribe. I don't want to let down my people. And that's the only thing that keeps me taking the next step. Mile number 6. I don't think I can do this anymore. I've never done anything this hard in my entire life. But somebody runs up and says, you can do it, man. You can do it. He looks at that person and says, don't you see the blood running down my chest? Don't you see the blood running down my arms? I'm in the most pain I've ever been in my life. Is this worth it? And finally, at mile number 7, in a town that will become called Gilgal, the man of God says, stop. and lay your burden down. When you've been carrying something like this for this long, you don't just drop it. You've got to lay it down carefully. And they begin to walk that rock down their body. Even as they're laying it down, it does its final damage to their body. And they finally lay it down. You don't straighten up right away from something like that, and you sure don't want to be talked to, and you don't want to be messed with. I think I'm just going to go over here and just rest for a moment, if you'll let me. People are coming around. Those 12 are all sitting around looking at each other. After a few minutes, one of them probably gets the courage to look at another one. As it was on me, yeah. There's a few times back there I thought I was going to stop and drop the load. Yeah, me too. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Look at this. I'll never be the same again. I'm scarred up, but I'll carry these scars the rest of my life. Yeah, me too. Nobody else in that camp can even come close to relating to those 12 men. All the rest of them just watched as they bore that burden. The only ones that can truly relate to those men are the other men that carried those stones with them. Those stones, they're now arranged in a monument that testifies that our God can do anything. I can see a man now whose beard has gone gray, and the hold of his hand is a little tow-headed boy. I can hear that little boy say, "Papa, which one of them stones was yours?" No more pain. No more bad memories about that crossing in that 7-mile track. I can see that Papa proudly point out, "That one right there, son. That one right there was my..." "Oh, Papa, you carried that all the way from the river where we were at this morning?" "Yes, sir, I carried it all the way, son." "Oh, Papa, you're the greatest man that ever lived." I'm looking over a crowd, and I would like for those who have started with us, who were at that Red Man parking lot. You remember that place? That was over a month ago. All of you that were in that Red Man parking lot, I want you to come up here for just a moment, quickly. All of you that started with us was in that Red Man parking lot. Remember back then, we all fit in a restaurant, a closed restaurant's parking lot. That's how big we were. Today we're filling up this entire parking lot and have them parked back there in the gravel. All of you that were there at Red Man when we started this endeavor.
I'll be happy to show you that, definitely.
I remember when you guys pulled up and it looked like it was over. You remember that day? It looked like we were done. It looked like we were finished. It looked like that we couldn't go on. You all pulled up and I saw it in your eyes. You still have the fire. You still have the desire. You still have the want to. And you all looked at me and I said, "I have nothing for you. I have absolutely nothing. I have no money. I have no food. I don't even have a place for us to park." And you guys looked at me and said, "We can do this. We can build it again. We can do it again." And I looked at every one of you and I said, "All right, here, Oreo." I said, "All right." And these guys took up that stone. And they have traveled all this way for over a month, waiting on this Monday. Waiting on it. Pass it around. Yeah, pass it on down. Every one of these people that were there, they stood with this organization. They stood behind this movement. They stood behind the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And they said, "Yes, we may bleed, and yes, we will hurt, but there will be a day coming soon where our grandchildren will ask us, 'Is this what you've done for us?' And we will proudly look at our grandchildren and say, 'Yes, I was there, and I did this. This is why we are here.'" same God, the same determination is still in our hearts. The fire still burns in our bellies, and we will not quit until we are successful.
Wow, huh? Oh my goodness. Powerful.
All right, everyone. It looks like we may have some rain, but please feel free to stick around. We are cutting our live auction short, but while the rain holds off, we still have the silent auction going on. We also have a 50-50 raffle going on.
Thank you so much.
And then
Kimberly's
please
sweet.
support our
I'll let her
other
know.
vendors, Bob,
Terry Ann,
Flags.
thank you.
We also
Glad you're all
have Craig with his hitches for flagpoles, for pickup trucks. And then we also have, I think his name was David with, thank you, David with vinyl decals. Pretty cool. I passed back there and he's got the machine set up and everything to do it right there on the spot.
Got
That's
that weather
awesome.
coming in.
We also have, right there.
Here's some
Look
of the
at that blue
auction.
tent behind the white tent. Okay. All right. And then we also have
Get a tear in your eye?
1776 restoration
Yeah.
movement t-shirts. And then our 50-50 raffle I was starting to mention. $1 for one ticket, or $10 gets you 15 tickets. And then, depending on how the weather goes, we will draw the winner at 7:20. Okay? Yes, and then
there's
oh my
some
gosh,
cool
how can
paint
I
floors,
forget?
too.
After everything gets dark tonight, we're gonna have an amazing fireworks show. So please stick around. I'm gonna put some patriotic music for all of you to mingle, meet each other, make new friends, find out each other's stories, where you're from, what led you to here.
They still have more of the patriotic crochet bears. They're so cute. Then we got the
All of these items that
t-shirts.
we're auctioning off have been donated by our supporters that a lot of them were not able to be here. And so they made it, painted
There she
it,
comes, right
carved
here.
it, put it together. Some people who are here who drove in.
Hey, where you been? I haven't seen you all day. Oh, good.
For our silent auction.
Look at this cool thing you got. That looks cool. That's a good one. Nice. They got the magnets too. Those are cool. Very cool. This was a good tent. It had more shade than just the 10x10s have. Got a lot of streamers here too. That's good. Oh, got lots of clouds over there. Oh my goodness. I just... Oh, I'm sorry. I keep kicking this.
I know, it's not easy. I only started.
I was calling her and you said you wanted to use it. Can you stream? I said, well,
Uncle Deuce. What's up with you? Yes, I'm here.
He said he wants a whole bunch of streams. When we go down.
Agnes, one of your friends said hi. Kimberly Sweet.
Kimberly,
Yes.
my favorite moderator.
Nice. She's sending you big hugs. We've got a good. Okay, we got some stuff from Simon here. Looks like I always get squeezed out of my primo spot when I've got the
Some of you folks will remember an American legend by the name of Paul Harvey. He had a clip that he did one time on the Declaration of Independence. He gave this speech, I believe it was in the 70s sometime.
Y'all hang out for a minute. I've got to get more ice in my cup. I need to keep
Paul
cool.
Harvey's rendition
I'll be
on
right back.
Independence
Simon's
Day
here.
from the Declaration of Independence.
Simon! Woo-woo!
How and the why of our beloved republic are so much better known and understood than the who. The United States of America was born in 1776, but it was conceived 169 years before that. The earliest settlers had watered the New World with much sweat. They had built substantial holdings for themselves, for their families. And when the time came to separate themselves from a tyranny an ocean away, at best it meant starting all over again after the ravages of war. Researching what you're about to hear gave a whole new dimension to my reverence for our nation's first citizens. All others of the world's revolutions, before and since, were initiated by men who had nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. Our founders had everything to lose and nothing to gain, except one thing. Hello, Americans, I'm Paul Harvey. You remember the cherry tree fiction. A long time after you have forgotten the more earth-shaking history-making episodes in the life of George Washington. You have misplaced in your memory the details of Ben Franklin's statesmanship, but you remember his flying a kite. Joyce Kilmer was a great military hero, but the only thing you personally recall about him is his poetic tribute to trees. Maybe of this current decade, that which will be remembered best will not be its wars and its moon rockets or its crumbling frontiers or the giants who lived and died. Maybe all that'll survive to linger in the day-by-day vocabulary of generations yet unborn may be the songs of a Memphis minstrel or the reincarnation of electric automobiles. But for any eve of the 4th of July, I, Paul Harvey, do herewith bequeath unto you something to remember. You may not be able to quote one line from the Declaration of Independence at this moment. Henceforth, you'll always be able to quote at least one line. It's in the last paragraph where you will recall when I remind you it says, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." In the Pennsylvania State House that's now called Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the best men from each of the colonies sat down together. This was a very fortunate hour in our nation's history, one of those rare occasions in the lives of men when we had greatness to spare. These were men of means, well-educated. 24 were lawyers and jurists. 9 were farmers, owners of large plantations. On June 11, a committee sat down to draw up a Declaration of Independence. We were going to tell the British fatherland, no more rule by redcoats. Below the dam of ruthless foreign rule, the stream of freedom was running shallow and muddy. And we were going to light the fuse to dynamite that dam. This pact, as Burke later put it, was a partnership between the living and the dead and the yet unborn. There was no bigotry, there was no demagoguery in this group. All had shared hardships. Jefferson finished a draft of the document in 17 days. Congress adopted it in July, and so much is familiar history. But now, King George III had denounced all rebels in America as traitors. Punishment for treason was hanging. The names now so familiar to you from the several signatures on that Declaration of Independence, the names were kept secret for 6 months, for each knew the full meaning of that magnificent last paragraph in which his signature pledged his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. 56 men placed their names beneath that pledge. 56 men knew when they signed that they were risking everything. They knew if they won this fight, the best they could expect would be years of hardship in a struggling nation. And if they lost, they'd face a hangman's rope. But they signed the pledge. And here is the documented fate of that gallant 56. Carter Braxton of Virginia, wealthy planter, trader, saw his ships swept from the seas. To pay his debts, he lost his home and all of his properties and died in rags. Thomas Lynch Jr., who signed that pledge, was a third-generation rice grower, aristocrat, large plantation owner. After he signed, his health failed. His wife and he set out for France to regain his failing health. Their ship never got to France, was never heard from again. Thomas McKean of Delaware was so harassed by the enemy that he was forced to move his family without pay, his family in poverty and in hiding. Vandals looted the properties of Ellery and Clymer, and Hall and Gwinnett and Walton and Hayward and Rutledge and Middleton. Thomas Nelson Jr. of Virginia raised $2 million on his own signature to provision our allies, the French fleet. After the war, he personally paid back the loans, wiped out his entire estate, and he was never reimbursed by his government. In the final battle for Yorktown, he, Nelson, urged General Washington to fire on his, Nelson's own home, which was occupied by Cornwallis. It was destroyed. Thomas Nelson Jr. had pledged his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. The Hessians seized the home of Francis Hopkinson of New Jersey. Francis Lewis had his home and everything destroyed, his wife imprisoned. She died within a few months. Richard Stockton, who signed that declaration, was captured, mistreated, his health broken to the extent that he died at 51. His estate was pillaged. Thomas Hayward Jr. was captured when Charleston fell. John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside while she was dying. Their 13 children fled in all directions for their lives. His fields and grist mill were laid waste. For more than a year, he lived in forests and caves and returned home after the war to find his wife dead, his children gone, his properties gone, and he died a few weeks later of exhaustion and a broken heart. Lewis Morris saw his land destroyed, his family scattered. Philip Livingston died within a few months from the hardships of the war. John Hancock, history remembers best due to a quirk of fate rather than anything he stood for. That great sweeping signature attesting to his vanity towers over the others. One of the wealthiest men in New England. And yet he stood outside Boston one terrible night of the war. And he said, "Burn Boston, though it makes John Hancock a beggar, if the public good requires it." So he too lived up to the pledge. Of the 56, few were long to survive. 5 were captured by the British and tortured before they died. 12 had their homes from Rhode Island to Charleston sacked, looted, occupied by the enemy, or burned. 2 lost their sons in the army. 1 had 2 sons captured. 9 of the 56 died in the war from its hardships or from its more merciful bullets. I don't know what impression you had of the men who met that summer in Philadelphia. But I think it's important that we remember this about them. They were not poor men. They were not wild-eyed pirates. These were men of means. They were rich men, most of them, and had enjoyed much ease and luxury in their personal living. Not hungry men, certainly not terrorists, not irresponsible malcontents, not fanatical incendiaries. These men were prosperous men, wealthy landowners. They were substantially secure in their prosperity. They had everything to lose. But they considered liberty, and this is as much as I shall say of it. They had learned that liberty is so much more important than security, that they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And they fulfilled their pledge. They paid the price. And freedom was born.
And now you know the rest of the story.
That's right. What a great guy. Paul Harvey was amazing.
And I guess the question begs us to answer the question of what will history say of you and me? Are we going to be like those, like the men that Santa talked about from the tribes that are carrying those stones? But we are leaving a legacy behind, and it is up to you and me what the history books will say.
All right, give it up for Simon.
Yes, great.
Thank you, thank you. Just a short little, just a shout out to how amazing each and every one of us are. So we got word that Simon had just flew in. Was it from Florida? Yesterday, right? And really could use a ride and get picked up from the airport. So do you think we just left him hanging? Or we went, God had one of us go and get him, huh?
Yeah, right.
So, was it Oreo? It was Oreo, right? Yeah, so shout out to Oreo Express for going to get Simon from the airport, which is about an hour away, I think, 40 minutes or so. Yeah, so just a shout out to Oreo Express for doing that, pick up our amazing Simon from the airport. Thank you, thank you. All right. Okay, our next segment, it looks like we might actually miss the rain completely. Praise the Lord. Okay? Looks like it's going to the north of us. You guys see that? What an amazing
He's such a nice guy.
parallel to good and evil, right?
Oh, well, I know how that is.
All right, so in our next segment, I'm going to have some of our patriotic testimonials. People share their stories, why they're here today, what has led them to this moment. If I could invite Dixie onto the stage, she has a gut-wrenching story where COVID-19 affected her family directly through mistreatment in the hospitals, and what inspired her to join TPC, and then which blossomed into 1776 Restoration Movement. If I could have everyone give a round of applause for Dixie. She has her family with her today, her husband, her daughter, and grandbabies. They're around.
Okay, definitely.
You want to come around this way?
Oh, I love that Grey Wolf started us walk. That's awesome. That's what I heard. That is so cool. Kimberly, thank you so much for coming by. I'm sorry I had to go get some more ice. Curly is awesome. Nice. Oh.
Hey guys, most of y'all see me on TikTok, so it's kind of a little different, but I'm up front with you. The story that I have with me, and if it weren't for my family, this isn't the entire crew, but these are the crew that supported my situation. But you know, where one go, we all go. And another freedom outlaw reminded me, families don't fight alone. And this family has not. Guys, to my right is my wonderful husband. I've been with him since 2000. His name is Tim.
Hello, everybody.
To my left is my middle child, Rebecca. She was hit by a drunk driver. She should not be here, but God blessed me, and since then I have little Savannah, who does not want to behave right now. Anyhow, everybody asked me why. Why? Why did I unplug you guys?
Oh no, you got it?
I got it.
Okay.
Sorry about that. The question was, why did I unplug you guys? Why did I spend almost every single day, 7 days a week, up to 12 hours a day? My family and I started back in February. We started with a wonderful man that has become my brother. I never had a brother, but I have a whole bunch of them now. He goes by several names. Up here? Okay. In the middle. I stay in the middle. Okay, I'm going to stay in the middle.
Stand still.
I am not used to standing still. I taught alternative education, so I'm used to troublemakers. I'm standing still, Victoria. Okay. Anyhow, I met a wonderful man who goes by several names.
Oh, so this.
When I first met him, it was Yarberry. Awesome. And then it went to Yardbird. Then it went to brother, friend, confidant. Where one go, we all go. I can now tell you, he is the director, he is the legal director of the Freedom Outlaws, LLC. We worked very hard on that. But through that process, it may be in my jewelry. Through that process, I'm going to back up. He started in Resaca, Georgia. And then after Resaca, Georgia, they came up 81 north to Tom's Brook. It's not me. 81 north to Tom's Brook. In that time frame, Freedom Outlaws was established. After Freedom Outlaws, of course, we followed my family with People's Convoy through Texas, through California, through Washington State, through Indiana, through Ohio, and back home to Hagerstown.
I guess we're gonna learn more about
But of course, God had other plans for us. And in that time frame, God bless my husband, he put up a lot. We are now forever entwined with 1776. Well, Brooke, I'm going to take you back a little bit. And I'm going to go with, I hate to put it the least, to the most gut-wrenching of my stories. My husband, God love him, does not know he's married to a smart woman. He doesn't know. He went out and decided, I'm going to get the shots. Okay, you're entitled to do what you want to do. I don't have a problem with anybody taking the shots. Just don't be forced. He got 2 shots. Okay, honey, stop, honey.
Yeah. You guys, I'm so sorry, but I gotta end this stream or I'm gonna lose it.
He came down with COVID in February.
I'll get dropped. Even though it's the fax,
when
that
he
stinks.
recovered from COVID,
I'll hop back on just a little
my
bit.
lovely, wonderful spouse, my lovely, wonderful spouse, came down with COVID.